Hi, welcome to Alex's ESL World. I'm Alex and I'm here to help you with your English. This is my second grammar video. The first was about the simple verb tenses, and this one is about progressive verb tenses. You might know these as continuous verb tenses. I don't know why, but we have two ways of saying it, progressive and continuous. Some teachers and books call them continuous, and others call them progressive. I usually call them progressive. But it really doesn't matter which way you think of them. They mean exactly the same thing. So when I say progressive, feel free to think of them as continuous. There's no difference. The progressive tenses are a little more complicated than the simple tenses. They need something called an auxiliary verb or a helping verb. The auxiliary verb used for progressives is the verb to be. And the ending for the base verbs for progressives is ing. The first thing we have to do is to conjugate the verb to be, which is our most irregular verb, but it's also our most used verb in English. Look at the chart and follow along as I read the subject pronoun with conjugations for be in the present tense. I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, you are, and they are. In the past and future progressive tenses, you'll conjugate be in the past or future simple tense. The base verb plus ing will stay the same for all of them. Let's have a look at the verb to work in the present progressive. The singular side shows I am working, you are working, he is working, she is working, and it is working. On the plural side, we are working, you are working, and they are working. Let's look at some examples. I am teaching you about verbs. This is what I'm doing right now. That's important for these verb tenses. They're about some kind of activity that's happening over a period of time. I started teaching you about verbs at some time in the past. When I started doesn't matter. It just matters that I started doing this thing in the past and I'm still doing it right now. And I will continue until sometime in the future. Next, you are studying English. The same rules apply. She is walking to school. We are going to a party. Now the timeline. This timeline looks different from the timelines for the simple tenses. This one shows a period of time. If you look at the arc, you see that something started in the past, is still happening now, they're still working, and will continue until sometime in the future. They're working on a project. The action is happening now. They started working on a project at some time in the past, they're still working on it now, and it will probably last until some time in the future. The simple present was more about a habit that happens regularly, or a statement of truth, like the sentence we looked at, tigers live in Asia. For the progressive tense, we're talking about some kind of activity that's happening now. It's progressing at the moment we're speaking. So verbs in the progressive tenses have to use action verbs. I'll make a video about action and stative verbs later. Just remember that verbs in the progressive tenses have to be action verbs. The past and future progressives work in the same way. For the past progressive, we simply conjugate the verb to be in the past. The rest is the same. The past tense of be is I was, you were, he was, she was, it was, we were, you were, and they were. Now you just add the ing to the base verb and you have the past progressive. Let's look at the verb to work in the past progressive. I was working, you were working, he was working, she was working, It was working. We were working. You were working. And they were working. For my examples, I'll change the present progressive sentences that I gave you earlier to the past progressive. I was teaching you about verbs yesterday. You might not have watched the video yesterday, but I was working on verb videos yesterday. You were studying English last year. I think probably most of you were. She was walking to school in the rain. Poor girl, that's sad. We were going to a party, but we didn't. It happens sometimes. Sometimes it's a good thing to miss a party. The timeline is very similar to the present progressive one. You'll see that in almost all of the timelines. They're usually the same except for where they happen on the timeline. Here you still have the arc or semicircle, but now it's in the past. So something started happening at some time in the past, and it continued for a while. Now, though, it's over. They were working on a project. They started working on it and worked for a while, and now they're not working on it anymore. Maybe they finished? There are two ways we use the past progressive. First, we use the past progressive to talk about an action that was in progress or still happening at a specific time in the past. For example, we were eating dinner last night at 7:30. She was living in South Korea in 2009. Second, we use the past progressive to talk about an action in the past that was in progress when another action or event happened. And the example for these are, we were eating dinner last night when my brother arrived. And she was living in South Korea when she learned how to ski. And now for the future progressive. When we make future sentences, we have to add either will or going to. I'm showing you the will form. Since this is future progressive, we still have to use be as our auxiliary verb, and we still have to end the verb with ing, but to make it in future, we have to add will. If I could leave you with one rule that you should know about all verbs in all sentences, it's this. When there are two or more verbs together in a sentence, only the first verb, whether it's an auxiliary or a regular verb, that's the one that's going to show the tense. The other verbs follow the pattern they need to in order to show the specific tense. Watch these charts and see what I mean. The future progressive auxiliary with the subject pronouns are I will be, you will be, he will be, she will be, it will be, we will be, you will be, and they will be. Will is a kind of auxiliary called a modal. We'll look at modals at a later video. Just remember that will means future and that it's a verb that shows the tense, the future. Will means future. Be is the second auxiliary verb after will, and the base form be is the one used. These are the two auxiliary verbs used for future progressives. Both of these auxiliary verbs remain the same for all of the subject pronouns. Now let's look at the verb to work. I will be working. Do you see all of the parts I've described? You will be working. He will be working. She will be working. It will be working. We will be working. You will be working and they will be working. They're all the same except for the subjects. Let's look at some examples. I will be teaching you more about verbs. I have a lot to teach. I hope you'll keep watching. You will be studying this afternoon. Maybe you will. I hope you will. She will be walking to school in the rain. How sad. This girl needs to get a ride to school. At least she has a good umbrella. We will be going to a party on Saturday. We missed the last party, but we will be going to this next one. As you can see, the arc is now in the future. There's something happening over a period of time, but now it hasn't happened yet. It will happen at some time in the future. So, how exactly do we use the future progressive? First, We use the future progressive to talk about an action or event that you expect to happen. Many of my examples so far have been this kind of sentence. My previous example was, they will be working on a project. This is something we expect to happen. Also, she will be walking to school in the rain. Again, this is something we expect to happen. The other way we use the future progressive is we use the future progressive to describe actions that will be in progress at a certain time in the future. Some examples are, you will be studying this afternoon. Let's see how this works with the timeline. Here you can see the arc. That is this afternoon. During that time, you'll be studying. Got it? I'm sure you do. Let's look at one more example. Sam will be working at the library until 8 o'clock tonight. This time, we know what the last event is. It's the time when Sam will stop working. So we don't need the arc to have dashes to show that we don't know. The point is that there will be a period of time when Sam is working, and it starts sometime in the afternoon and it goes until 8 o'clock. And that's what you need to know about progressive tenses. In the next video, I'll be talking, did you catch that? I'll be talking about perfect tenses. After that, I'll show you how we combined progressive with perfect tenses. Then I'll make some comparisons between the different tenses so you know how to choose which tense to use. That's it for now. Thank you for watching my video. Remember to ask questions on my website if you need to, and remember to be kind to each other. Bye for now.